Happening here. There we go. Hello, my friends. It's Andy over at today's CBD oil. My gosh, man, I have a great interview that's coming up tomorrow. Heather Blassie. I'm going to be interviewing her tomorrow at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I know it's an odd time, but she's on the East Coast, so it's more beneficial to her. But it's a great. It's going to be a great interview. You're going to love this interview. But the reason I brought her up is that because, you know what, when things happen, you know, I know people get all stressed out. I have people that I've coached over the years in regard to doing live broadcasting or into doing recorded video for the creation of products, writing a book, and everybody gets so uptight about the technology, about whether it's going to work and what the heck. And I'm reminded by what one of my good friends, Bruce says, and he says, Bruce Jones says, you know, one thing I like about Andy's broadcast is he doesn't care when he messes up. He just keeps messing up and just keeps on going. And so, yeah, I mean, what do you do? These things happen. What can you do? The next thing I was going to talk about, this is what I originally was going to talk about, is that have you ever made a meal and you go, and it's so good, and you go, oh my gosh, that is so fantastic. Now, I rarely say this about a sandwich, but I just made the best turkey sandwich on planet. It was so good. I'm thinking about making another one. All right. So I want to talk about looking forward to our future by looking backwards. And how this all came about is that this morning we had our bi-monthly mastermind call. Myself and my business partner, Everett O'Keefe, and Berlinda Thompson. We have a group called the Business Accelerator Group. It's a mastermind group. And we have a call every other week. And then we have also retreats that we go to. We just came back from Lake Tahoe. And before that, where were we? I forget. Was that Nashville? I think we were in Nashville. And then we were in some other place. I can't remember. Canada. We were in Vancouver, British Columbia. And so it's a great group of people. We have these calls, and usually we're talking about business, about the tools, about publishing, about the new things happening with Kindle or Kajabi or what are the other ones? All kinds of different stuff. Infusionsoft to ClickFunnels to all of the stuff, right? All the things that we use in marketing today that we've been using for the last 10 years or so, where we used to use Instant Customer and Traffic Geyser. These are all old tools that are still exist, but now they're called something else, TP&I. TP&I is out of Arizona, a good friend of mine, or not Arizona, but I think they're out of Boston still. But my good friend in Arizona, Phoenix, Arizona, Robin Phillips, is one of their head guys in regard to the tech and talking about it. So this is a great group of people that we meet every couple of weeks in our mastermind group and discuss things. And today the topic was Everett had came up with a great idea, and he said, let's look back 10 years and see, and let's talk about, I want each of you in the mastermind group to talk about where you were 10 years ago and a little bit of an overview of how you got to where you are today. And it was a great subject. It was a great subject, I think, for those of you that may be following my journey here with Viseo and Overcome Nation and wondering why the heck I'm involved in a network marketing business. Many people get a little worried about, joining a network marketing company, or they've been involved before and it wasn't a good experience. Or they've had friends or family that have tried to sell them stuff just so they could, make some money off of their friends. And there's this, this idea that network marketing is bad or is full of kooks and that kind of stuff, and it's simply a pyramid scheme. And you may be right in some way. And I have surely had that same experience with my experience, very limited experience in being in network marketing, which is usually signing up and then doing nothing is what is what my past is. But that is not the case with Viseo. And I'm just going to go ahead and write a little thing here. Right here is the chart to $22 billion dollars. Now that's not how you write that. I think you write it the other way. But with this industry, the industry of, oh my gosh, let me get rid of this thing. Sorry. This is the path right now that we're on with CBD and the wellness business. And if you're talking about wellness solely, you're talking about trillions of dollars. But in regard to CBD, where Viseo has a great CBD product called CBD1, we are just right here, right? This is where we are right here. There's my arrow right here in this upward swing based on Forbes, who says that by 2022, that's hard to say for some reason, 2022, the industry, the CBD business, the industry will be at $22 billion. And right now we are only just right here. This is where we're going to be just in 2022, $22 billion. And so when I'm looking back 10 years to see what was I doing 10 years ago and where I am now, there's an amazing amount of things that I have been through, that I have done, that I have created, that I failed at, that I've become a great success at in 10 years, right? And we're talking about going from here to here in just 2 years in relationship to CBD. And I think this is where I think many of you who have not joined me, who are not signed up yet, don't understand what the possibilities are by joining now and having the patience and just understanding. And I want you to look back. So I'm going to look back here just for a second, just to kind of share with you kind of what I shared with my group and kind of give you an idea of what I was doing simply 10 years ago and how much different my life is. Now, again, not all of it is good. I'm going to tell you that not all of it is good, but then the good and the bad stuff has somehow allowed me to be where I am today. And understanding that, right? We can look back at the bad things and think, you know what? I wish I never would have done that. You know, what decisions I should have made, you know, that could have made things different. You know, why did I do that? And how is it possible that I was so dumb to make that decision back then or do those stupid things that led to this, right? We can always look back at that kind of stuff, but I think you really need to look at it a different way. And hopefully my story will help you and understand this. 10 years ago, I was simply, and the other dog trainers will probably not agree if you know, because that's the thing. Dog trainers don't agree on anything. But when I say this, I want to make sure you understand that I'm saying this not to be a braggart or you know what I mean. I'm not trying to say it because I want to build myself up to this thing, but I will share with you to show why I think the way I do. So 10 years ago, I don't know why I felt like I needed to preface that. I don't want you to think that I'm being braggadocious. Is that the word? Is that the correct word? Nobody's going to comment right now. Tell me if that's the right word. And if anybody can spell it, that would be awesome. All right. So 10 years ago, I simply was fairly close to being at the very tip-top peak of the dog industry in regard to the business, where I was, what I was doing. I had 3 different facilities, essentially in the world. I had one in Orange County, Brea, California, and had 3 different buildings that I was leasing at the time, conducting all types of training bed bug detection dogs, E. coli salmonella detection dogs, cell phone detection dogs to the military. Of course, police dogs, had contracts. I was training dogs for not only Disneyland in Anaheim, but Disneyland in Tokyo and the other Disneyland properties in Orlando, or there's another one out there, or Paris. I knew there was another one, and all the dogs in those places. I had television shows going on. I was recording television shows for Discovery Channel and Animal Planet. None of them really got started or went anywhere, because that's the case with most television shows. You film them and nothing happens. But I did have a show produced with Cesar Millan called Love My Pitbull. He and I did that show, and I had written my first book, or started writing my first book. I think I'd written 4 books at the time. Sorry, a whole different book I was thinking about, but 4 manuals or 4 books up to that point, self-published books that were being used by other police departments for training. I was in about every association possible. I had a DEA license and an ATF license, and essentially things were going really well. All right, and I was still a police officer. No. Yes. No, I wasn't. I just I'd left the police department by that time, but I was full force running the business. And then again, I was on other television shows. I was a guest on other television shows. I was on news channels. I was being interviewed by NPR and other news. And so things were really good, right? So business was great. I was retired from the police department, getting a retired a pension from the police department, and things were outstanding. And that's where I thought I would be today. I thought that was just it, man. I was going to even get bigger and stronger, and things were going to be fantastic. But some of us people make really bad decisions, and we go and at the time of our peak success, and we try to do something else. We try to add on by doing something different to see, man, if I'm that good at that thing, I must be good at everything, right? I'm going to do this other thing, and it's going to take off too, because you think that, right? You think that, and I didn't even realize at the time that it took me 10 years to get to where I was at that 10-year point, right? I incorporated my company, my corporation in 2001, and in 2010, I was at that level where I was, on television on a regular basis, radio, and writing books and doing a whole bunch of stuff, right? And things were looking pretty positive. But I made the mistake of having the bright idea I was also asked by another person to start a new business, and I thought, might as well do that too. And I started a security company. Well, that decision simply a year or two later caused everything to come crashing down. Everything, not partially, not just a little, blip, not a little bump in the road. It caused everything to come crashing down. So 10 years ago, I was at the top of my career, top of my level in regard to service dogs, police dogs, detection dogs, pet dogs. We have huge classes that were overfilled. We had too many people. We had to split the classes up into two, and I had to find other trainers because we were so dang busy. And then merely a year or two later, because of a bright idea, I started a security company, and going from 5 employees to 500 employees, everything came crashing down, right? I made some really bad decisions, hired the wrong people, put the wrong people in place. I didn't keep my eye on the ball. I assumed that people were going to do what they were supposed to do without me watching them or being a part of it and not having any checks and balances. I wasn't paying attention to a lot of other stuff. And I just thought, I'll buy all these police cars, which I bought something like 4 police cars, had 4 police dogs. Hope I have the number right. I may be off 1 or 2. We had hundreds of radios, police style radios. We had 20 bicycles for the bicycle team. We had uniforms, 1,000 uniforms for 500 employees. And that was my bright idea that caused my entire world to turn upside down and lost just about everything. David Everett says 10 years ago, I was at a party and I don't remember. Yes. And so, we were pulling in hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then got a couple $1 million contracts, but then it went bad, horribly bad. A marriage that was kind of struggling already was really struggling now. A foreclosure sign got hung on my door. The truck payments weren't being paid. I was paying employees out of my retirement. I was paying employees with credit cards. I had workman's comp, a bill of something like, I can't even remember what it was, $50,000. It was an incredibly difficult time that I'm still working on today. It's still with me today. Everything that can happen from that point on. Literally, 2 years after that, I was trying to reinvent myself and trying to figure out how I can get out of this hole. And I drove myself down to San Diego. I had somebody that fortunately paid for a ticket. I brought up Robin Phillips earlier. Robin Phillips was part of the group in San Diego that I knew. There was a marketing conference going on with this group called Traffic Geyser and Instant Customer. Robin Phillips at that point was working with them. Mike Koenigs, Pam Hendrickson, who was the number 2 to the Tony Robbins organization. She was essentially creating all of Tony Robbins programs. And so she was there, and I wanted to go there because I wanted to figure out how it is that I could market myself differently so that I could get back to where I was before, considering I had lost everything and now I was hurting really bad. began losing contracts because that's what happens when you're struggling and you're trying to keep too many balls up in the air, and so many things begin to happen, and it just simply starts to go downhill really fast. So I drove myself to San Diego. I borrowed some gas money. I slept in my truck because I couldn't afford a hotel room, and went to this conference, and I learned about becoming a published author, about taking it to #1 bestseller status, about doing videos. I'd already been doing videos. I'd already created DVDs and VHS tapes on dog training, but now I learned how to use video for marketing, and that was in 2012. So in 2012 is when I began to learn all this stuff about video usage, about repurposing your content, about creating blogs, about creating podcasts. These were things that were kind of coming into the future. Not a lot of people were doing it. Not a lot of people knew what was happening. Nobody knew anything about live broadcasting. We were still using Meerkat and Blab and Periscope at the time. Those were all just apps on a phone. It had very little to do with a computer. I had tried some stuff with Wirecast on a computer, and it failed miserably because I didn't have the computers that had the power to run Wirecast at the time. And although I tried it a few times, it just crashed and burned, and a lot of things didn't work out well. So I'm telling you all this because I want you to take a look back 10 years ago, and things could have been fantastic, right? Things could have been great. And then stuff happens. And you could have thought that you were doing that thing at the time, right? Whatever it was that you were doing at the time, I thought, again, 10 years ago, I was going to be the #1 dog trainer on the planet because I was very close to being at that level. It was more in a level of the working dog. So a lot of civilian didn't know, although when I did that show with Cesar Millan, it became more popular with pet dog owners and that kind of stuff. But in the police world, I was at the top. I was very much at the top. Some people hated my guts and some people loved me. That's the place that you are always, right? When you're at the top, when you're at the top, people hate you or they love you. There's very little in between. And I had a lot of people that hated me. And so it was a very interesting time, but that kind of makes you aware of your success. When you're successful, you begin to hear more often the people that don't like you, and you begin to get a little bit more hate mail. And back then it was mail. Today it's hate email or hate Twitter comments and Yelp comments. Yeah, Yelp comments were that thing. And so understand that I had no idea 10 years ago that I would be where I am now. All the things that I learned, everything I learned from the crash of my business and everything we lost, those three buildings that I had for dog training, 3 buildings, not just like a little facility. I had 3 buildings that took up an entire block over there in Brea, and had secretaries. I had 2 assistants. No, I had 3 assistants. I'm sorry. I had 3 assistants. I had a cameraman that followed me around every day for 2 years. I had a cameraman that followed me around for 2 years, taking videos so that I could repurpose them into VHS tapes and DVDs and that kind of stuff. We had a TV show on YouTube, right? So I had that all in my mind 10 years ago, which a little bit of it still exists in here. Now other people do the dog training in my dog training business. I consult and I testify in court as an expert. So the dog world is still a part of it, but not like it was then. I wasn't actively flying places and selecting dogs in Europe and Slovak Republic and Poland and Hungary like I was, even Ireland back at the time. But now I do it differently, and it's much smaller. But in no way was network marketing, in no way was CBD, in no way was doing live broadcasting to teach people about CBD and wellness on my radar 10 years ago. So as we look forward into the 2020s, as we move into the 2020s, I want you to really kind of look back and see where you were and just say, you know what, there's a great possibility that I need to look at something else. Whatever I'm doing now may not be paying the bills like it should be. Whatever I'm doing now may not give me fulfillment. It may not give me time strength. I may not be able to make any passive income, which that is the way that you need to start thinking if you are going to be debt-free and stress-free, is when you begin making money passively when you're not actively a part of your business. As far as my business is concerned, as long as I am active and part of it and marketing myself, that's the only way I make business. As an expert in regard to police dog training, if I'm not actively speaking at places, if I'm not getting interviewed on NPR or other radio stations, and speaking at events at the bar associations like I did just like a month ago or 2 months ago in New Orleans, or when I spoke in Philadelphia, if I'm not actively doing that, and then returning phone calls and being active in that business, and then actually doing the research when somebody sends me a case, and then actively going to the courtroom to testify in those courtrooms. If I'm not doing that, I make no money, right? If I do nothing, I make zero money. But in regard to network marketing, and particularly with Viseo, who again, we are just right here at the very beginning stages of this ramp, of the ski ramp, up here at $22 billion is what it's scheduled to be, or projected to be by 2022, $22 billion by 2022, that we're just right here right now. If you're not thinking properly that you should join me on this path and stick around for a while, that it's not going to happen immediately, although 2 years is not that long. I waited 10 years to get back on track to where I am now, where I can charge now $400 an hour as an expert in the canine world. And I get plenty of cases to be happy about that. And that was not on my radar 10 years ago. This is on the radar. We know through projections, we know what's happening in the market. We know what's happening with wellness. We know what's happening in regard to baby boomers and their need to come up with solutions to their poor health and wellness, that there needs to be something out there for them. And there's a lot of them. And that is one of the keys to this boost and this boom that CBD is going to see, that $22 billion by the year 2022, then you're missing the boat. And so by looking back, and I just simply want you to look back and think, you're right. 10 years ago, I was doing this thing and had no idea that I would be remarried to this person that I married now, that I would be, living where I'm living now, that I would have had such tragedy that I would be able to overcome that tragedy and be where I am today. Or you're having tragedy now and think there's no hope for my future. There is. I just told you about the tragedy that happened to me. I was on top of the world, and suddenly I was under the dirt, buried in financial difficulties. My marriage ended, and it was horrible. I was probably not doing that great as a person, right? And you begin to start doing things that aren't really your personality, and you do things that aren't really you, because now you're struggling. You're trying to figure out how to get out of this hole, and sometimes people get in the way as you're trying to crawl out. And quite often, those are the people that we love, because we begin to be harder on the people that we love. We begin to treat them harsher. And that is just human nature, right? But we learn from that. We learn that that's really not the way to go. That the people that you need to be kind to and be that need to go through life with are those people that are next to you. So being here today and being around over the next 2 years and sticking it out and being strong and being positive and not giving up over these next 2 years only can pay off, right? And so there's a few of you that I see people watching and coming off, that those of you that are kind of peeking in and saying, is he still rambling on about his past? And still just he can't decide whether, I don't know if he's on a rant or if he's actually trying to speak a story. The story is 10 years ago, I did not know that I would be here. 10 years ago, I had no idea that I was going to be even able to recover from what I had created and what I had caused. And that was a complete failure in business, to a complete bankruptcy of both business and personal income. And now being able to recover and now charge a great deal of money for my expertise. Why can I charge that much money for my expertise? Because both the positive and the negative things that happen during that period of time. The only way I can charge $300 to $400 an hour for my time is because I'm using both the positive and the negative. The negative is something you need to wrap your arms around, and you need to embrace, and you need to share with people. You need to use to help other people get out of their dire situations that they may be in. And I think Viseo is one of those things. I think Overcome Nation is one of those things that once you join and begin to see and begin to feel what I feel when I'm with the people in Overcome Nation, you'll begin to understand what I'm talking about. So take a look back of where you were then and where you are now. And you can see that the future has a strong possibility of being much different than it is now. And I think by joining me with Viseo and Overcome Nation, I think that is one way of doing that. And just wanted to share that with you, because I thought that at my mastermind group, our discussion day was powerful for all of us. We all really got to see where we were, where the technology has changed in 10 years. The technology we were using 10 years ago is extremely different than the technology we're using today. The struggles we had with technology back then and just getting it to work is no longer an issue today, right? We have new struggles. We have new challenges with technology. We have other things that have replaced that old technology. The technology we use has changed names. So 10 years is not that long. And when you look back, you realize, wow, I did a lot of stuff in 10 years and I made it out of it. And this may be one of those things, going from here to $22 billion in the industry and being a part of that and having a hand in that, I think will be a powerful thing for all of you to consider, and consider joining me over here at Viseo and Overcome Nation. All right, that's it. That's all I want to tell you. All right, take care. Talk to you later. Bye.